Alright, so now that we've got a basic understanding of VLookup, how are we going to apply this to what we've already done? And so what we're going to do is we're going to use that VLookup to make a dynamic table. And so basically what that's going to do is that's going to allow us to create charts that we saw like in the original video when I showed you that financial dashboard. So we're going to put this together for our categories total, our funding source total, and our drop downs, right? And so we're going to start with our categories total. And so the way we're going to set it up is like this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste this whole line because I need it exactly again. All right. That didn't copy correctly. So I see that's because this is actually this. So I'll just go ahead and put that in like so. All right. Sorry, we should be doing this on our project totals. Let's start with the project totals. So let's go ahead and do it here. So I'm going to copy that line. Paste it here. Let's get this boy in there. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to actually set up a system where we can create a dynamic chart using this information. So once we've got this copied down here, I'm going to go ahead and tell this one to equal, we're going to set a data validation for this cell. And this cell is going to be quite important. So this is going to be data validation. And the range that we're going to give it to select from is this. And make sure to include that totals list in there because that's going to be important, all right? So we're going to say OK on that. And if it doesn't like it, it's going to reject the input. So we'll click Save. And so now we've got this option, right? And you'll notice the blank cells don't register, right? So it can be set to totals if you want it to, or it can be set to any of the content that's filling this. And remember, this is automatically filled from our drop-down list over here. So if we add that new project back in, that one will automatically be added here, and it will start populating those zeros across the chart, right? So all of this is ready to go, ready to be expanded upon for future proofing. And if you really need to add more lines to this, you can always just add extra cells in here and then make sure your formulas are working properly going down, all right? So now we've got our new project, and more importantly, we've got our totals option available in here, because in this case, for this data validation, we did it directly from this point above rather than referencing our original drop-down sheet. Okay? So, in this case, what are we going to do now? So now we're going to use VLookup. So I'm going to say equals VLookup. There it is. And so here we're giving it the search key. And so the search key is the value to search for. Okay? So what are we searching for? Well, we're searching for this cell. So in this case, it's A27. So I'm just going to click on that. And then the range where we're looking for it is actually going to be this whole block. And in this case, I'm going to go all the way to the end there, all the way down to S21. And so it's checking this whole block for that search key, whatever is appearing over here. All right? Now, we're in January, right? So we're doing all of this under the January cell. So once it finds that search key, which column number do we want it to return? And in this case, January is in the second column. So just to remind you guys, if you're missing out, we've made this giant purple box selection here. This is the first column within our selection. This is the second column within the selection. This is the third column, and so on. So in this case, we want it to return this number that happens to be in the second column. So I'm going to click 2 for index, and then I'm going to click false, which is basically going to make sure it's sorted properly, and that's done. And so now what you'll see we've created is we've created a dynamically adjustable chart. So whatever I click in over here, it will return the results for January right next to it, right? So I can just choose from all of these things, and most importantly, I can get totals, and totals will include that number right there from there. So this is a really powerful feature to create this dynamic table, which is going to be useful for creating our dynamic chart. So how do we get these things across? Well, that's easy. So first thing, we want to put our dollar signs around the things that we need to lock. And in this case, it's going to be full locks on all of that because we always want it to be checking this cell, and we always want it to be checking this whole range. So we're going to go ahead and press enter on that. We're going to drag that across to the end. And then all we need to do is change the returned column number. So right now, everything is returning column 2, and column 2 is B, right? So you'll see this is returning column 2, this is returning column 2. They're all exactly the same. So we need to set each one to represent which column number we want it to return. Don't be confused. We're not doing the same thing that we did last time where we're changing this number to represent the month, right? That was searching a different column for the actual month number. In this case, we're actually changing the returned column number. So February is going to be column number 3, March will be column number 4, and so on. So to do this fast, I'm just going to use my keyboard and mouse. April is going to be 5. I'm pressing tab, click, backspace, 6, tab, click, backspace, 7, tab, click, backspace, 8. So I can do this kind of fast. Oops, went one too far. There we go. $16, $17, $18, $19. So just to be clear, I want to make sure you guys understand what those numbers are that we're doing. We are telling it to vertically look up, and what it's looking for is the contents of A27. So A27 right now says totals, but we can change it to whatever we want, right? This is dynamic. So whatever appears here, that's what it's going to look for, okay? So whatever you change it to here, whether it's totals, which is going to look up for the totals, or film project, or anything you put, where is it searching? Well, it's searching this whole section. So we've locked that in, A2 to S21. So A2 all the way down here to S21. It's searching that whole block. But it's only searching for that phrase. It's only searching for the A27 phrase in the first column. And the result that when it finds that, it will return the result found in the column number that you mentioned here. So in this case, once it finds it for January, I want it to return the second column, which in this case is January. And over here, I want it to return the third column, and then the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And again, I'm just reading that out loud to make sure that I didn't mess something up. If something was missing in there, then I'd get poor results here. So we've just used VLookup to turn this. Now don't forget, these none of these tables are static, right? This is a dynamic table. If changes are made over here on our expenses list, they will be reflected here within our changes list and will automatically update these numbers, will automatically update the totals down here, the totals, the quarters, the monthly average, all of that will automatically sync to update to the latest information. And that will also automatically update this table. Now, the reason I call this table dynamic is because we can actually use this button here to change that the contents of what is displayed. And the reason that is important is because now we can use this to make a chart. And so check this out. I'm going to go ahead and go to Insert, and we'll go to Chart, and it's going to pop up with this chart information box. And I might zoom out a little bit just to have us fit a little bit more information on the screen. There we go. So here's our chart, and what information do we want it to show? Well, we need to decide first how we're going to display this. So I think a column chart is probably the best for this. So we're just going to leave it on column chart, and then we need to set the data. So I'm going to click on data range, and I'm going to erase everything, and I'm going to tell it to select this range, and I'm even going to include the quarters and the monthly average and actually, you know what? I think I'm not going to include the quarters. I'm just going to include up to, let's see, this is September, October, November, December. There we go. And you can move this out of the way if you want to see it. So that's the whole year that we have right there. And so I'm just going to click OK. And now we can mess around with the formatting a bit to see how this works. So I think we need to flip the axes here, switch rows and columns, much better. And so now we have our monthly expenses on a chart, and most importantly, the chart is changing, right? So we can go ahead and click through all of these, and our chart dynamically updates. Boy, I didn't mess these around very much. We can also see our totals, right? And so this chart is now not only showing one piece of information, it's now dynamic, which means you can set it to what you want it to be. You can then, right from here, you can download this chart as a PDF, PNG, or vector graphic that you can use in your report or your presentation or your proposal. Super easy. If you're using PowerPoint or Microsoft or Google Slide or some sort of presentation software, you can just copy and paste this actual box, just Control C, Control V, and you get another one. And check this out. The great thing is no matter what, it's all dynamic, right? Those charts are all dynamically changing as you do this. And so what this means is that you can now set up a different page where you will have all of your charts displayed in a nice, easy way. And that, for me, I call a dashboard. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cut this chart, or I'll copy this chart. I'm going to make a new page called charts, and I'll paste that chart there. We're not going to go too much into design right now. So we'll just collect this chart here, and I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm not even going to worry about giving it a title right now because we can do all that in the design and styling guide later. But let's just make sure you have a charts page and that you have that chart copied over to there. Now here's where things are going to get a little bit confusing. I can even delete this chart, that's fine. So again, I can change this around and that chart will dynamically change, right? But that's kind of annoying to have to click back and forth. So one of the nice tricks that I like to do, and again, this is going to be confusing because you're removing it from here. Remember, this chart right here, this data that we are looking at, right? It's coming from here, but it's looking at this cell to find out what information to display. So I'm actually going to steal this cell. I'm actually going to right click on this cell and cut it from this location. And I'm actually going to paste it onto a completely different page. In this case, I'm going to paste it over here on my charts page, right? And so now I have my charts page and I have this chart here and I have a button right above it that allows me to adjust it, right? And so now, without having any other messy things on this page, I can very easily cycle through my beautiful little charts here and see what's what. And now you can imagine doing this same thing for all of your other categories and setting up multiple different types of charts, bar charts, circle charts, graph charts, whatever. You can group those all on one page with these dynamic buttons that allow you to switch to see very specific sets of information. And so that's kind of how this works. Now, the downside is that that cell is gone from here. So you'll notice that this cell is actually now referencing charts B2 instead of, what was it, A27. And that's moved automatically. So that formula automatically affects there. So these numbers are still changing, but the button to change them is no longer on this page. It's now on your charts page. And so we're going to end by having a beautiful charts page with lots of nice designs on them. And guys, that is going to wrap up our discussion of VLookup. We went through the training course using pears and oranges and apples. But really, the use that I wanted to introduce you guys to would be to take some information like this and use it to create a dynamically adjustable table like this. So this is using a combination of different tricks and tips and formulas. And hopefully you guys have gotten some insight into how it is possible to set up something like this. And yeah, I really encourage you guys to start using this kind of system for your spreadsheets because there's so much you can do with them. So I think the last video is actually going to be on styling. So now that we've learned all the formulas that we need to learn to basically set up something like this, the last question is going to be, how do we put it all together into something that looks really good and is easy to use and easy to download and easy to export into reports and documents and so on. And so we're going to do a few the last thing is really going to be formatting and conditional formatting and design of your charts and of your slides, sheets, to make them a little bit easier to use visually and for your staff to just have a easier time working with them. So well done, everybody, for following along so far. We've got one more video in this series on Google Sheets to do, and then we'll move on to other topics. All right? Thanks so much, and have a great day.